Hey guys, welcome back. It's Hogg the Spike from the Trinisphere, where a Timmy, a Johnny, and yours truly battle over all things EDH. Today we're going to do a deck tech on Heliod Sun-Crowned for our upcoming two-headed giant Gods versus Titans matchup. Before we get started, remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you get notifications on all upcoming Trinisphere content. I'm going to make this one short and sweet for you guys. We all know the combo, that's what you guys want to play this deck for, is Heliod Sun-Crowned plus Walking Ballista and or Triskelion. And of course we'll cover some of our usual categories, but that's really what this deck is. This deck is a one-trick pony. We're looking to assemble a combo as quick as possible, protect the combo, and kill our opponents as quickly and efficiently as possible. So like we said, we're going to start off, we're going to talk about both our commander and the combo. Heliod Sun-Crowned is 2 and a white for a legendary enchantment creature god. He is a 5/5 indestructible, and as long as your devotion to white is less than 5, Heliod isn't a creature. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control, and you can pay 1 and a white, another target creature gains lifelink until end of turn. So the second main piece of this combo is Walking Ballista, an XX00 artifact creature construct. Walking Ballista enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. So you pay 2 mana and it comes in as a 1/1, or 4 mana and it comes in as a 2/2, so on and so forth. You can pay 4 generic to put a +1/+1 counter on Walking Ballista, and you can remove a +1/+1 counter from Walking Ballista to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. So how this combo works is we're going to pay 1 and a white with Heliod Sun-Crowned to give Walking Ballista lifelink, and then we're going to remove a counter to deal a damage, thus gaining us a life and putting another counter back on the Walking Ballista. This lets us generate infinite counters. Well, not infinite counters, but it lets us deal infinite damage. We're always going to be adding a counter and removing that counter and then adding another counter, so on and so forth, letting us kill our opponents. Of note here, we do want to play the Walking Ballista at least on 2 counters originally, or else when we remove a counter to deal a damage, it'll become a 0/0 and it'll die to state-based effects. So we always want to make sure we pay 4 mana into X when we cast our Walking Ballista. And the other card, of course, that combos with Heliod Sun-Crowned is Triskelion. This one costs a little bit more mana. It's 6 generic for a 1/1 artifact creature that comes into play with 3 +1/+1 counters, and you can remove a +1/+1 counter from Triskelion to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. So again, just like Walking Ballista, we're going to give Triskelion lifelink with Heliod, remove a counter to deal a damage, it'll get another counter, and we can keep that chain going and kill our opponents. So like we said, we want to set this combo up as quickly as possible, so we've got a couple of tutors in here that I'd like to talk about. The most unique one is going to be Scrapyard Recombiner, kind of a hidden gem from Modern Horizons. It's 3 colorless for an artifact creature construct with modular 2. This creature enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. When it dies, you may put its +1/+1 counters on target artifact creature. So most of the time that's not going to be relevant, but if we're only able to cast our Walking Ballista for 1, where it only has 1 counter, we could sacrifice our Scrapyard Recombiner to put its counters on the Walking Ballista and then let us go off. The important part of this card here, though, however, is it has tap, sacrifice an artifact, search your library for a construct card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So both Triskelion and Walking Ballista are constructs, so we can tutor out both with the Scrapyard Recombiner, and later when we talk about protecting our combo and kind of like a recursion element, Scrap Trawler is also a construct that we can fetch with Scrapyard Recombiner. We've got Ranger of Eos and Ranger Captain of Eos. Both search our library for a creature with converted mana cost 1 or less. So we do have a couple of sweet 1-drops to get, including the Soul Sisters, Soul Warden and Soul's Attendant. Both are 1 mana 1/1s that whenever a creature comes into play, you gain a life. We have Withered Wayfarer, which will help ramp us and get our utility lands out of our deck. We have Mother of Runes and Giver of Runes. Both are protection creatures. Giver of Runes is a 1/2 that lets us give a creature protection from colorless or a color of our choice until end of turn. However, it does not give itself protection, and Mother of Runes is a 1/1, but it gives a creature of your choice or itself protection from a color. not from colorless. So they do vary, but they are both very good. We have both of those and both Soul Sisters, and we have Serra Ascendant. Now this card, if played early, can steal the game by itself. It's 1 white for a 1/1 with lifelink, and as long as you have 30 or more life, Serra Ascendant gets +5/+5 and has flying. So in EDH, if you play this on turn 1, it's going to be a 6/6 with lifelink and flying, and your opponents aren't going to be able to keep up. But our Ranger Captain of Eos and our Ranger of Eos both get Walking Ballista because its converted mana cost while in our library is 0. So that's going to be our primary target, and the others are just good value creatures. Another tutor, we have Recruiter of the Guard, 2 and a white for a 1/1 that gets a creature with toughness 2 or less out of our library. Again, Walking Ballista in the library has toughness 0. So that's going to fetch it up for us real quick. And finally, we have Enlightened Tutor, which is just a quick instant for 1 white that searches our library for an artifact or enchantment. So because Walking Ballista is an artifact, we can get it here. We can also get any of our Staxy creatures or enchantments with this card. All right, let's talk about ramp. We are in mono white, so it's a little sketch, but we'll make do with what we got. We're not on a budget this time, so that's a little bit exciting. We've got Knight of the White Orchid, which is just going to ramp us if our opponent has more lands than us. We have Brought Back, which is a good protection spell, but can also ramp us, considering we're playing fetch lands in this deck. Brought Back is white for an instant. Choose up to 2 target permanent cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn, and you return them to battlefield tapped. So if you play a fetch land, just wait. There's no rush to crack it. When you have 2 in play, crack both of them and cast Brought Back and bring them both to play tapped, and go search your library for those 2 basics that you fetched. So it's pseudo ramp. But again, if someone kills one of our combo pieces, we can Brought Back because it's an instant and return those permanents to play. So it kind of fills 2 roles here. We've got Mana Crypt and Soul Ring, as well as Arcane Signet and Treasure Map for some artifact-based ramp. Treasure Map is sweet in this deck because we are also playing Smothering Tithe, another good ramp option. Smothering Tithe makes treasure tokens, and once we have flipped Treasure Map, you can sacrifice a treasure to draw a card. Another good interaction between the 2. If we're playing Knight of the White Orchid, we're obviously going to be playing Land Tax, a staple of mono white decks. It's 1 white for an enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you may search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, and shuffle your library. So it doesn't ramp you, per se, because the lands go to your hand, but you're thinning your deck, and you're always going to guarantee that you hit your land drops. So like I said, the ramp is a little loose. Let's jump into card draw. We have a Skull Clamp, a staple for any deck with 1 toughness creatures. We have a lot of our Staxy creatures have 1 toughness. And Skull Clamp just is going to let us draw 2 cards whenever we want for 1 equip cost. We also have Endless Atlas, 2 colorless artifact with pay 2 and tap, draw card. Activate this ability only if you control 3 or more lands with the same name. This is easy for us. We're in mono white. We're playing a lot of plains. We're playing 18 to be exact. We also have Mask of Memory, 2-cost artifact equipment. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw 2 cards. If you do, discard a card from your hand. This is really solid early game and late game. Just drawing 2 cards is very strong in mono white. We also have Smuggler's Copter and Well of Lost Dreams. Smuggler's Copter, of course, being the banned vehicle from Standard. Banned for a reason. This 2-cost 3/3 flying vehicle. Whenever it attacks or blocks, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. It has Crew 1, which is very easy to set up. And if played early, we can get a lot of cards drawn out of this. Well of Lost Dreams is whenever you gain life, you may pay X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life you gained, which in this deck can be quite a bit when we're playing our Soul Sisters, when we're playing Heliod, when we're gaining a lots of life. We may not necessarily be able to set up the infinite win with Walking Ballista / Triskelion. If we don't, we can fall back on this kind of mid-range life gain value plan where cards like Well of Lost Dreams really shine. In our enchantments, the card draw option we have is really only Dawn of Hope. It's 1 and a white. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 2 if you do draw a card, and it has the ability to pump out 1/1 lifelinking creature tokens, which are great because it supports the whenever you gain life draw card effect, but they're also 1/1s, so they're good fodder for our Skull Clamp, like we talked about before. The deck has plenty of removal. Now that is split between permanent removal and kind of almost stacksy removal. When people forget that your stacks creatures like Land and Arbiter are in play and crack a fetch when they can't pay for it, that is removal. You're blowing up a land, for instance. For the hard removal, we have Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares, staples of any white deck. One gives your opponent life based on the power of creature exiled, and one gives your opponent a land. But both are very strong at 1 mana. We also have Heliod's Intervention, which I think is the best of the options here, over Return to Dust and Forsake of the Worldly, and Crush Contraband is the other one. I think Heliod's Intervention is the best. It is white X for an instant, choose one, destroy X target artifacts and or enchantments, or target player gains twice X life. So for 4 mana, you get to blow 2 artifacts or enchantments up, which is the same as Return to Dust, but Return to Dust has to be cast at sorcery speed, and Crush Contraband is also an instant, but you can only do 1 of each. Heliod's Intervention can blow up 2 artifacts or 2 enchantments for 4 mana, and that's just for 4 mana. You can also scale up with Heliod's Intervention. 5 mana blows up 3, 6 mana blows up 4. This card is very strong. Unexpectedly Absent gets rid of any permanent. It shuffles it, or excuse me, it does not shuffle it. It puts target non-land permanent into its owner's library just beneath the top X cards of that library. So you can bury something or even put it on top of their library and kind of time walk them. If they spent their whole turn casting 1 big spell, you put it on top. Next turn, that's what they're going to draw, and they're going to replay that same card. Generous Gift, destroy a permanent, they get a 3/3 elephant. Darksteel Mutation is an aura that turns a creature into a 0/1 indestructible artifact creature that loses all abilities. So you can kind of permanently deal with any scary permanent. If we also put it on a active god, that god's never coming back. We have Aura of Silence, which not only makes our opponent's artifacts and enchantment spells cost 2 more to cast, but we can also sacrifice it to destroy an artifact or enchantment. And finally, we have Grasp of Fate, which exiles a non-land permanent that each opponent controls, which is really strong. So let's talk about some of these stacksy creatures that we have. We have Grand Abolisher. This lets us protect our combo by making it so that our opponents can't cast spells on our turn. We have Leonin Arbiter that we talked about before. Players can't search libraries. Any player may pay 2 colorless for that player to ignore this effect until end of turn. It's easy for people to forget about these effects, and it can really hurt them when they do. We have Leonin Relic Warder, cheap creature that gets rid of an artifact or enchantment, kind of Oblivion Rings it, and when Leonin Relic Warder leaves play, they get their permanent back. We have Phyrexian Revoker. It's a Pithing Needle on a stick. Can name anything, any activated ability that we're having trouble with, Planeswalkers, anything like that. This can come down and lock it up. Spirit of the Labyrinth is a cheap 3/1. It's an enchantment creature, which, remember to note that because it'll turn on enchantment removal from your opponents. They can blow this up with a Naturalize, for instance. But it says each player can't draw more than 1 card each turn, so this is really good. It's going to definitely shine in our matchup against Uro, as they won't be able to Growth Spiral each turn when there's a Spirit of the Labyrinth in play. We have Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, and Thalia, Heretic Cathar. Thalia, Guardian of Thraben shuts down non-creature decks. It taxes spells. They cost 1 more to cast. And Thalia, Heretic Cathar taxes creatures. They come into play tapped as well as non-basic lands. Alms Collector is another one that hurts opponents that are going to be drawing lots of cards. If they would draw 2 or more cards, we draw 1 and they draw 1. It's also a 3/4 flash body, which is really strong. Linvala, Keeper of Silence, turns off activated abilities, including mana abilities from Mana Dorks. And Aven Mind Sensor, when an opponent would search their library, instead they only search the top 4. So a lot of these are going to be really techie plays that are going to depend on what our opponents are doing, but they're going to make it really difficult for our opponents to accelerate their game plan. We've got a couple other Staxy pieces in here if you'd like to look through the list. I'm not going to cover all of them. They're all going to be doing effects similar to like we talked about. Some of them are stronger than others, and if you have any suggestions as to some that I didn't have in my list that you think would be really strong, make sure to put them in the comments so that I can see, and maybe you'll think of something that I didn't. 2 alternate win cons for this deck. Again, if you're not able to assemble the Walking Ballista combo, are Archangel of Thune and Aetherflux Reservoir. Aetherflux Reservoir being a strong pet card for me. Archangel of Thune is 3 white for a 3/4 flying lifelinker that says whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. So this is, again, really strong. It can almost replace Heliod. It can replace Heliod. If you don't have the Heliod, but you do have the Walking Ballista and a way to gain life, the Archangel of Thune will put the counters on the Walking Ballista for you and let you win that way. And the Aetherflux Reservoir, because we have so many cards that incidentally gain us life, it just has the option to pay 50 life and deal 50 damage to a creature or player. So this is going to be the oops, I win button that you're going to hit late game if you're not able to combo. We've got a lot of awesome tech lands in this deck. Arch of Araska lets us draw cards, Blast Zone blows up permanents, Buried Ruin gets our Walking Ballista or Triskelion back, Castle Ardenvale makes 1/1 tokens that we can Skull Clamp, Cavern of Souls makes sure that our commander is uncounterable, Emiria the Sky Ruin lets us get creatures back from our graveyard to play, Glimmerpost, Kabira, Crossroads, and Radiant Fountain, as well as Seraph Sanctuary, all gain life when they enter the battlefield, which sets up our combo. Inventor's Fair lets us tutor for an artifact, and Strip Mine lets us deal with problem lands our opponents control. Alright guys, what did you think of this deck tech? I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I gave you some insight into Heliod Suncrowned, maybe suggested some cards that you hadn't thought of playing. As always, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you're not first, then you're last. This is Hogg signing off.